quick warning for anyone with headphones on. Loud noise incoming now. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 14 of the LDG Experience podcast. Today we are discussing Orcs with a K.
Which puts them into the 41st millennium.
41st millennium. Well, technically now the 42nd millennium.
And the 41st. It's not like they suddenly magically appeared in the 42nd millennium.
No, they did. Out of nowhere.
Fully formed up.
Out of nowhere.
Like Randy Orton.
Yes, indeed.
From the Galactic Keys.
The Galactic Keys.
God, that's Gaskell Fracker's music.
Oh my god, that would be scary,
know,
wouldn't
right,
it?
anyway.
But yeah, quick distraction.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
We're alright.
Yeah, we're good.
Clearly mad.
Obviously, yeah, it's because I've been reading about Orcs for the last 2 days.
Yeah, it will warp your brain.
It does, in fact, warp your brain. Before we get started, though, usual plugs, lazydragongaming.com for all your pre-order requirements for most games. Please feel free to check it out. If there's anything on there, if you want something that you don't see, give us a message either through the website or any of our social medias, which is, of course, Lazy Dragon Gaming everywhere except Twitter, I think, or X, because we lost the login. And
also
Elon Musk can do one. So
Also,
unless he wants to give us loads of money.
That's true, yeah.
also Twitch,
yes.
Ooh.
So Twitch at LD Gaming Live, coming very soon. For Lorcana streaming by myself and knitting streaming by my good lady wife. She'll be knitting all manner of nerdy things. Speaking of Twitch, you're on Twitch as well, aren't you, Pete?
Oh, look at that. Seamless segue.
Seamless segue. I'm getting better at these.
I'm also on Twitch.
Yes.
On Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at Onyx Dragon Gaming, where we hang out and paint things. And now we have surprise guests. Because I've raised up a second streaming desk.
Oh my word.
So we occasionally get the Ben Greaves Memorial painting desk.
Hang on, isn't Ben still alive?
Yeah, sometimes I can still hear his voice. That's what he said. Yeah, no, I wanted to call it. I just called it the Ben Greaves Memorial painting desk because it's usually his painting desk.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting a plaque made up. To be honest, it will be on screen at all time.
Excellent.
But yeah, so yeah, we've joined us on. And speaking of Orcs with a K,
yes.
Hopefully soon we'll be painting Gaskell Thracker.
Yes, I ordered, because I knew this was happening,
there we go.
a Garskull Mag Uruk Thraka and a Lehman Russ battle tank. But mainly the Garskull, because I knew we were doing this. So on Onyx Dragon Gaming, coming soon. I should have brought it with me today and forgot.
Yep.
But there will be, Pete, you will be painting on a Tuesday.
I will. Tuesday's my because we do big projects on a Mondays and Wednesdays, and then Tuesdays is what I call my casual stream, where we paint all sorts of random stuff. Like last week we painted a Deathwing Knight, one of the new Deathwing Knights, was really cool. Yeah. I painted Star Wars stuff, all sorts of random things.
Yep.
And we thought, I knew that after talking about Orcs for a week, that I was going to be itching to be I kind of want to paint like an Orc model maybe, and you preempted me by going, here's Gaskell, of course, the biggest Orc.
The Orc.
I might just completely subvert it and just paint Makari instead.
Yeah, could do that too.
That's fantastic. Just Makari.
Just Makari. Screw the big Orc. Just have the little Goblo.
Indeed, yeah. So find me on. You can find me on Onyx Dragon Gaming wherever good social media is sold, and also on Twitch and YouTube.
YouTube, yes, we are also on YouTube at Lazy Dragon Gaming.
We are
where you can subscribe, and which we would appreciate.
Like.
Share, like, comment, and all that sort of thing. Speaking of comments, if you have any questions about either Old World or 40k or 30k, which you can
basically the Warhammer universe.
The Warhammer universe.
Less so Age of Sigmar because I'm not so au fait on that.
Yeah, we're not Age of Sigmar people.
We're too young for that. That's a kid game for the hip kids.
Yeah, you get too old now for Age of Sigmar. But if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We will get them. We're going to be doing another questions and answers on the episode 20.
Indeed.
So we do need some questions for that. So if you do have any, please leave them in comments.
And we great fun ones in the first round, so I'm looking forward to seeing different ones.
Yeah, we've got some interesting ones coming up. So, but today we are going to be talking about Orcs with a K from Warhammer 40k. Now, I have in front of me from the Warhammer 40k wiki, which I believe is dragged in from all sorts of various sources, the origins of the Orcs, and right away it's going to be contentious because according to the Orcs, they were initially sort of brought into the universe by the Brain Boys.
These Brain Boys are, so if I remember rightly from my very, very old GW lore, Brain Boys are now what we would now call Gretchen or Grots.
No, they're the... Oh, maybe.
They were. That's what I mean.
This is the thing, because the other theory is that they are now extinct.
Yes, but what I'm saying is their descendants are the Grots. That's what I mean. Brain Boys used to be super smart Orcs and things, but they were more closely related to what we now know as Gretchen. They weren't just Orcs that got stupider. They were actually Grots that got smaller and stupider.
Right.
Because Orcs at this point were some of them were the size of Titans.
Yeah, they were quite big.
Very, very big.
Now, initially, they weren't called Orcs either.
No.
They were called Krork. The Krorks. And the current 40k Orcs are descended from the Krork, who are allegedly created by the Old Ones as a weapon to use against the Necrons and the Catan in the War in Heaven, first War in Heaven.
They're two last-ditch weapons. We think the last... Because this is all conjecture, because we don't know a lot
We don't
about
actually
it.
know, yeah.
Yeah, the last two weapons we think that the the Old Ones used against the Necrons was Chaos, opening the portal to the war, because it's one of the things that's most anathema to the Necrons and the Catan. They have no psychic powers, and they don't like the messed up reality.
Yeah, they hate the war.
Yeah, they're very friendly. And the second was, when that wasn't like it was kind of might go out of control, they released the Orcs as a thing, because obviously we know that Orcs are incredibly hard to get rid of, and all they do is like fighting. And also they're quite good against Chaos as well, because they don't really fall to Chaos as such, they just fight Chaos.
Well, they just fight anybody.
Yeah, but because they're quite pure in the way they do it, they can't really be twisted away from it as such. There's no such thing as an evil orc, because they're kind of just like, we like fighting and crumping and eating and killing, and we're pretty honest about that. So you know,
they're very few.
Very, they've got very good solid mental health.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Every orc is very decisive. Very decisive. We don't actually know whether or not that is correct.
No.
That is changed over the years. It's possible that they just evolved from mushrooms. Because in 40k, orcs are in fact fungus.
Yes, because in the Gorka Morka rulebook, there's literally like a little diagram.
Yes,
of how it works, like how orcs shed spores, the spores lodge in the ground, a little mushroom pops up, and then like a big egg sac type thing grows underground, and that grows in your orc, and then
or a Gretchen, or
any of the green
skin
snotlings,
variants,
squigs.
And depending on how like fertile the ground is and what kind of planet they're on, you get different types of.
Yeah, because also the other really strong thing about orcs is they have genetic memory.
Yes, I was just going to come to that, because basically when you get like say, I don't know, 10 orcs and a couple of Gretchen in one place, they tend to be quite what they refer to as savage orcs, or there is a feral orcs. That's it. Yeah. So in all the old world they will be called savage orcs, and in 40k they're feral orcs, and their technology is bows, arrows, sharp pointy sticks.
Yeah. The more they almost have like an almost gestalt consciousness thing.
And then
the more of them there are, the smarter they all get.
Yeah, and then when you get like, I don't know, 50 together, they start figuring out that you can put like,
and then mech boys start appearing
and weird boys, which we'll come back to. We'll come back to the different odd boys as they are.
Because a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think one of the cool things about orcs in 40k is that their shared sort of consciousness and belief makes a lot of things manifest.
It does.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, like I say, we can come back to that with the odd boys in a bit. Yeah,
because odd boys, but also just their technology.
Yeah, just in general. Yeah. But before we get to that, we have to go through a bit of 30k, because obviously we've got to go through first of all
the Great Defeat.
The Garrow Harrowing, where the Emperor of Mankind pops out of his thing of hiding in the 30th millennium and says, "Hey guys, I'm the Emperor of Mankind.
It's now our turn to rule the galaxy.
Our turn. Our turn now." And then he goes off into space with I don't really know if anybody's heard of him. This
kid,
Horace.
Yeah, him and his lad.
Him and his lad Horace.
Yeah, one of his lads.
I don't think he's very important later. I don't think so.
We're not in the story of Orcs.
No, definitely not. Yeah. Basically, the Lunar Wolves and the Custodes they go off to a big orc planet where they win.
Called Ullanor.
No, this is a different one first. Before Ullanor, they go to a planet, the Garrow, basically, a planet called Garrow or Garrow. Gorro, as opposed to Nathaniel Garrow, which is spelt with an A. Basically, they go in and collapse the whole planet.
Yeah.
And there's some of the big orcs are on there. That's where they see the first big really fucking orcs. And then we go to the Ullanor Crusade after we finish there. And at Ullanor,
where they have a handicap match
against the orcs,
against the last of the huge orc war bosses.
I
never remember his name.
So according to this, at Ullanor there were 100,000 Space Marines and 8 million Imperial Army troops
against some number of orcs that probably outnumbered them by a good few.
Yeah, and of course this is the Ullanor that is now Armageddon.
Shut up.
I just had to get that in there.
Yeah.
Basically, Ullanor, the Crusade made its end, and the Orcs were were like...
Yeah, they finally defeated the very last mega war boss. Yeah. Like, literally Horus and the Emperor. Like I said, it's literally almost like a handicap match. The two of them on one mega war boss.
Yep.
Horus saves the Emperor's life, kills him. There's a big celebration. They plane an entire continent flat, have a big celebratory triumph, and that's where the Emperor basically high-fives Horus and goes, "You're in charge now, I'm off home.
I'm going to go and sort out
you and the boys can carry on doing stuff.
You and your brothers go and take care of
I'm going to go build
crusade.
a chair.
Yeah, I'm going to go and fix some stuff.
I'm going to build a chair and dig a hole.
So next up, after we go through the Horus heresy, which obviously we're not going to discuss here because it's
relevant to Orcs.
It's irrelevant to the Orcs entirely, but we jump then to M32 544.
Hang on, let me break out the whiskey for this.
Yeah, now this is the bit that's going to cause both me and Pete a lot of pain.
Yeah, but we have to accept
that it happens because at this point, the War of the Beast takes place. Now, the War of the Beast, I don't know all of it because I stopped reading it because it is complete garbage.
The War of the Beast, as I like to think of it, Draken Vangeridge's fun goings on, and some Orcs do some stuff. This is where an Orc moon, attack moon, allegedly makes orbit around Terra. Yeah.
And Orc diplomats appear on Terra and demand its immediate surrender and handing over to the Orcs. Probably not. I kind of get the impression that somebody...
so out of left field.
Yeah, I kind of get the impression that somebody in the administratum has made a data corrupting error. And that actually this was probably something else, and this is something that some fever dream that some administratum lackey has had.
That's what I heard.
Because honestly, after this point of the War of the Beast, it just becomes an LSD-driven nightmare of bullshit.
It does feel so. Like I said, I love a lot of GW's lore and stuff, but when they did the War of the Beast, it started off okay, and like I said, the stuff with Draken Vangeridge and the beheading is really cool. And some of the side stories are really interesting, but the actual main story itself, like I said, feels like an LSD-filled fever dream.
Yeah, it's awful. The only good things to come out of it, Draken Vangeridge was really cool.
Freaking awesome.
And the Death Watch were formed as a result of the War of the Beast. And they were the ones, the kill teams were put together to go and kill off specific Orcs, cut the head off the beast and try and do this. You also got the return of Vulcan, who then immediately disappeared again because, why would they keep interesting things happening? The Last Wall Protocol, which we've discussed previously, which is complete garbage. So this basically is the return, essentially, of Orcs
as a major threat.
And that's the important part.
Yeah, because the whole War of the Beast is kind of around the time when not just Orcs, but also Chaos Marines are first appearing really, in numbers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things where people are like, okay, we thought after the heresy we'd settle down and everything would be fine. Yeah. And then the bigger threats start reappearing again.
Yeah, they come out of nowhere. This is
that's the best thing to take away from
this. The War of the Beast, you get some cool stuff. Like I said, you get the Death Watch, the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition is formed, and of course you get the beheadings. Other than that, that's about all we need to really cover on that. Then we get into much more interesting...
The fun times. Actual 40k.
Actually, we're into the first one is the 41st Millennium, and his name that comes up first is Tuska.
Yes.
Which I think is very famous demon.
Tuska
the Demon Killer. Yeah. Now, he is a warlord of... Does it actually tell me which clan he's from? I don't think it does. I'm going to assume he's a Goth because most of them are.
Yeah.
And he is going through the warp in a Space Hulk.
Yeah.
And because they don't really have a Geller field, which keeps flickering in and out, demons keep appearing in his Space Hulk. Now,
and the boys are like, wow!
There's things to kill! Awesome! Choppy! And he realises that if he turns off the Geller field completely... that there will be more of them. So he does. And basically what he does is he comes out of the warp and is like, oh, they've all gone. Shit. You, weird boy, where do these things keep coming from? And of course the weird boy, which is an Orc psyker, basically points towards the Eye of Terror, which is obviously the big breach in reality into the warp, and says, well, they're all coming from there, boss. So why don't we go and have a look over there? So he does, and he flies into the Eye of Terror.
Yes.
Now, he's able to do this with his Space Hulk because the Cadian Defense Fleet is all pointing towards the Eye of Terror.
It's more concerned about what's coming out, not so much what's going in.
So when
they're all kind of like watching them go, like, are they coming for us? No. They're like, well, just let them go then.
Yeah, so I think there's a really cool short story which sums this up basically, where there's an Imperial listening post. and he reports to a captain of a strike cruiser or some kind of battle cruiser. And he's like, "Sir, we've got a contact on such a heading." And he says, "Okay." So where's it going? And he's like, "Well, it's heading straight for you." And he's like, "Oh, well, we'd better turn about then." And then he's like, "It's not stopping or opening fire." So what's he doing? Is it going past us? What heading is it on now? And he's like, "Well, he's heading towards the Cadian fleet." And he's like, "Oh, well, we'll let them deal with it because they've got more guns than we do." Yeah. So they all radio ahead, and they get to like Cadian head, like Imperial Command, and they're like, "There's a space hulk heading towards you." It's like,
no, quick!
Oh no, quick! Turn everything about and do. And he's like, "It's not stopping.
It's not slowing down.
It's not slowing down. Where's it going? It appears to be on a heading towards the Eye of Terror." It's like, "Okay, well,
make room.
Everybody, get out of the way then." And basically, Tusker flies his space hulk through the Imperial fleet at Armageddon, just straight into the Eye of Terror. Yeah. Where he, which is hilarious because pretty much it is the biggest fleet outside of the Terran Defence Force, is the Cadian fleet at the Eye of Terror, which is insanely large. He then proceeds to start landing on demon worlds, which essentially are planets corrupted by demons. They are what they say on the tin, and just smashing demons for fun.
Yeah, because I think, is he the one where he's on the planet, like, and he basically, the whole thing is like, he gets locked on the demon world where he fights until he dies.
Yes.
And then the planet magically resurrects him, and he's like thinking this is torment.
Yeah, so basically what happens is they end up in the realm of Khorne.
Yes.
So he fights his way in. They end up in the realm of Khorne, where the Blood God by now has started to pay attention.
He's like, "Wow, this is pretty cool.
This is pretty cool. We like watching this dude fight." So he sends one of his bloodthirsters. It doesn't actually give me the name of the bloodthirster, but he sends a bloodthirster, which is essentially one of the generals of Khorne's army. Yeah. And he says, "You go and have a fight with that orc and his boys." So the bloodthirster takes his boys, and they all get down onto whatever planet it was. I don't think it tells me the planet. It's some unknown demon planet in Khorne's realm. Yeah. And they basically fight, and everybody dies.
Yeah, literally both sides. Yeah.
So both sides, everyone dies. The following morning, Khorne's like, "Oh well, that was fun. We can do that again," and basically presses the reset button.
But also, he's kind of thinking, "Oh, this is a way you're going to break this orc, by constantly having die, and then fight and then die and then fight and then die. It's going to break his mind."
Nope.
Tusker is like, "This is heaven. This is literally, I have found the ultimate fighting ground."
Yep. So basically, rather than causing Tusker to lose it and his boys to go mad and become part of Khorne's army, and which is what he expects after millennia of this happening, because of course the warp being weird, wibbly time differentials. No, Tusker and his boys are fucking ecstatic that every day they get back up and fight again.
Yeah, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
So Khorne just leaves them. And I assume by now he's just fucking forgot.
I mean, he's just using to train like bloodthirsters. Yeah, just like you can have a millennium against these orcs.
Yeah, have a try, see what happens. Yeah. Like, but yeah, that's one of the most.
So as a quick aside, because this has reminded me of one of my favourite quotes from an orc.
Okay.
So this is a quote from Big Moore, Orc Runt Herd, about space travel.
Okay.
"Travelling through space is boring. Well, boring unless the Hulk you're on is full of them gin sneakers, or a base for the Chaos lads with the spikes, or already has boys on it, or if human looters come calling, that's always good for a bit of sport, or unless you have a mutiny, or two to pass the time, or unless strange things start happening, which they do usually do when you're out in the warp. One time we had some bloody great ugly thing come straight out of the weird logwart's head. It butchered after, lads. That was pretty entertaining. Come to think of it, space is pretty good. Laugh. And that's before you find yourself a nice word to crush." So yeah, that is the Orcs' feeling about
space travel.
Space travel, yeah.
The next big sort of green tide thing happens in M41 797, where Marnius Calgar, the chapter master of the Ultramarines, basically fights off a load of orcs. Yeah, that's about it, really. It doesn't really say much. We get a bunch of wars that are just basically, so we, as with Old World War, it is a gathering of orcs that starts laying waste to things. And then we get War Gazbag, and Gazbag is a speed freak, so at this point I think it's worth mentioning the clans of
the
orcs.
Major clans.
Yeah. Orcs, all by genetic default, fall into categories of clans. Yeah. The biggest clan is the Goth clan.
Yes.
They are the ones that are represented the most.
Yeah, their whole thing is like the big horns. I think their symbol's like the big horn skull.
It is, yeah.
With the big sort of big teeth.
And basically they're the fighty ones.
They're the fight. Yeah, their whole thing is just like punching and fighting and just that. They're like, that's their whole.
There's nothing really special about.
No, they don't have any kind of specializations apart from we like fighting the most.
Yeah. So next up is the Evil Sons. Now the Evil Sons tend to be the ones that are the speed freaks.
Yes,
if I'm
so
right about that.
Evil Sons are the speed freaks. Speed freaks are orcs who just love to go fast in anything, be that like bikes, planes, buggies, anything.
Trucks.
Just,
Everything is painted red.
Again, this comes back to orc belief. That red ones go faster, which is one of my favourite special rules of all time, because if you it used to be an upgrade for your orc vehicles was red paint job. If you painted your model red, it got an extra inch movement.
Yep.
Because
ones go faster.
As we said before, if orcs believe a thing, strong enough of them believe a thing, it happens.
Yes.
So red ones literally go faster because orcs believe that it does.
We will come back onto the belief thing in a bit. We haven't forgotten.
That's their thing is Evil Sons are the speed freaks.
Yeah.
Made famous by their sort of sub. They're one of the few ones that ever had like an actual sub army.
Yes, they have.
There was their thing in Codex Armageddon. Orcs thing was the speed freak list.
Yeah, you can still do them.
I know you can do all the various
plans
now,
very
but
cool.
yeah, that was their thing.
Next up is the Bad Moons. Now,
known for being rich.
The Bad Moons colour is
yellow,
and yellow ones are richer.
Yes.
Yeah, and they grow their teeth, which is orc currency. They grow their teeth faster.
Yeah, they're a bit like because orcs are a bit like sharks.
Yes.
If you knock out their teeth,
they just grow back.
Yeah, and that's why they use them as currency.
Yeah, and Bad Moons grow their
teeth. They happen to grow a bit faster, which therefore makes them predisposed to be richer.
Yes. Snake bites, feral orcs.
Yes, but also more kind of traditional.
Yeah, traditional.
They tend to be more your runt herds,
squig riders.
Squig riders.
Squigs.
Yeah, well, it used to be it's squigs now, but it used to be things like the
boar boys
and cyborgs and things like that. They're more traditional in their views.
Yeah, they're like they're more the traditional is the best way of putting it. Orc tradition is important to them.
They're more they want to fight in the old ways.
Yeah, blood axes.
Oh, my favourite.
Yep.
Blood axes who have seen humanity and think that sneaky cunning is the way forward. Wear camouflage. And I say wear camouflage. It could be any combination of colours.
Yeah.
Like it could literally be like neon green and red.
It could also just be some twigs.
Yeah. But they're like these are the guys known for commandos.
Yes.
Yeah, they like to emulate. Some of them even wear uniforms and things like that.
Are they the
Storm Boys?
Storm Boys.
I think Storm Boys can be.
The
Storm Boys are mostly just young orcs that are rebelling against orc society by conforming to one another and being uniform and marching in ranks, wearing uniforms, and basically doing everything regimented. Is orcs' teenagers' way of rebelling.
And the last of the big clans is the Death Skulls.
Death Skulls, who believe the colour blue is lucky. Which is why they tend to paint themselves with blue. And they will steal anything that isn't nailed down and pry up anything that is. They are the looters. Looters and freebooters and pirates.
The mech boys.
The mech boys are more of a Bad Moon.
Are they a Bad Moon thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Death Skulls are more your freebooters and your pirates and things like that.
So it is the Death Skulls that tend to flog all the stuff to the Bad Moons.
Yes.
That's how that works, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, of course, in the mix-up, we've got the Cult of Speed,
which is a predominantly Evil Sons thing, but it's just speed freaks as such.
They're an entirely mobile group of orcs.
Yeah, think Mad Max Fury Road. And imagining them all being big and green. That's
feral orcs, which we've discussed.
Mostly again, snake bites tend towards that.
Yep.
And freebooters which tend towards being Death Skulls.
Yeah, and freebooters being traditional Earth pirates.
Yes.
Including having like grots with feathers on their shoulders. And
or having big tricorn hats.
Peg-legged tricorn hats, that sort of thing. Like and the most famous one of those we will discuss later, which is, of course, Captain Badrook. We'll get back to Badrook.
And his awesome gun.
He is, with the Ripper.
Which is an Orc Ripper gun that fires plasma canisters.
Yes.
He's modified it to fire ammunition that is literally the plasma flasks you would put into a plasma gun.
Yes.
Fired through an old Green Ripper gun. Because it's Orcs.
Yeah.
This is why he wears a lead-lined coat.
Yes.
To stop himself dying from the radiation.
Yeah. So I think at this point, so now basically throughout the history of Orcs, all it would be me telling you about various wars. So I think
there's a war, and another little war.
Everywhere a war.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth mentioning Wazdaka, who was Speed Freak.
He was the big Speed Freak.
He was a big Speed Freak character.
He's been in and out of the game.
Yeah.
But his thing is he has this amazing custom bike that he never slows down.
Yeah, and he doesn't stop. Yeah,
he's literally always moving. Yeah.
And all his boys are on bikes, in trucks, they're in planes.
He's pretty much like the prophet of the cult speed. Almost.
Yeah, he's the big cult of speed.
He's the one that any orc worthy soul who loves speed and things wants to be Wazdak.
So yeah, and he led a massive war that would terrorise the segmentum that he was in, because he was like, nobody could really formulate how to deal with,
because you couldn't stop him. Because literally his whole thing was about moving fast and killing things.
Yeah, all the time.
It's like they couldn't even bring him to battle because he'd just be gone. They'd planned to sort of we'll set up here and then eventually just go somewhere else. Yeah.
Another big one of Death Skull's big mech called Planet Smasher, who I'm only mentioning because his name is Planet Smasher.
Yeah, they've all got really
And then I think it's worth discussing the Odd Boys after this, because like I said, basically all that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a bunch of different wars with a bunch of different names that wrecked entire segmentum, usually from a few planets to like...
Yeah, they come out of nowhere again, like they do when we said with the Orcs with the sea.
Yep.
Orcs tend to gravitate towards a leader, and when enough Orc tribes fight each other together until one big war leader emerges, that's when they tend to be like, and now towards other people.
Yes. We will come back to one very famous war.
Oh, yeah.
There is one that we will do at the end, or towards the end, because he is very important. But in the meantime, we're going to drift off wars to Odd Boys. Yes. And these are important in the sense that the more orcs that you get in a place,
the more of these will
start appearing, and the more knowledge they seem to have.
Yes.
So in order to
again, it becomes more of a thing like if you might see the odd 1 and 2 like Mech Boy, for example, and they'll know how to make certain things, but the more Mech Boys you get, the more they start putting their heads together and making bigger and bigger things. Yeah.
So this will accumulate, and the best way to explain this is start by saying that orcs have a what they call a war aura around each orc.
Yes.
And it operates very similar to a psychic field.
Well, it is a form of psychic field.
It is a form of it, but it's not manipulatable by anybody else.
No.
So the Chaos guys can't fuck with it.
No.
The Imperial
I don't even know if
Psychics...
Tyranids can actually stop it.
No, the Tyranids can't mess with it.
No.
Eldar don't understand it. All they know is, that's Orky. That's about all we really know.
Yes.
But when you get a bunch of orcs together, this field gets stronger.
Yeah, this is where their belief starts affecting
and that's where
the world.
Yeah, so if one orc says, this is a gun, and the rest of the orcs go, it looks like a gun to me, it goes bang. It go bang. Whereas if me or you were to pick it up, it would just be a box with a handle and some bullets in it.
There's no orcs around.
Yes.
Like if you took an orc gun that you found on a planet, 9 times out of 10, if you took it away from that planet and to like an Imperial research world that had no orc presence on it whatsoever, it is just a bunch of stuff stuck together.
Yep.
Imagine a child's like if you said to a child, build me a gun, gave them the vague principles of how a gun is supposed to work, trigger mechanisms, loading, all that sort of stuff, and went build that. Except if there was enough children together, that gun would work. Yeah.
And that gets bigger the more orcs there are.
Yes.
To the point where they can start affecting, Yarak, for example.
Well, this is why Yarak lives so long. Because orcs believe him to be one of the greatest enemies. So they believe that he's such a worthy enemy that their belief of orc kind is almost sustaining him.
Yeah, he was alive for a lot longer than he should have been, based off the fact that the orcs knew he was the best fight they would find and didn't want him to not be there.
Yes.
And that's how powerful that belief can be.
Didn't they call him Yarak the Unkillable or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Old Bailey.
The Old Bailey
is his name.
Or
he is pretty much
he was he
has been quote unquote killed a few times.
And the orc belief has always sort of carried through.
Indeed,
which is how powerful enough orc belief can be. On a smaller scale, it's mostly to do with guns working that shouldn't, engines running that shouldn't, and on a bigger scale up from that, planes flying that shouldn't.
Really shouldn't,
and things like that. So that's how that works, and then that leads into weird boys.
Yeah, well, one thing I want to talk about Met Boys is this is part of the excuse for like why, because orcs are supposed to be like just put stuff together in random patterns. But it's the in-universe explanation as to why a Boomdaka Snazwagon will look like a Boomdaka Snazwagon is because these designs are almost in the collective.
It's genetically correct.
It's genetic memory. So they're like, so Mech Boys get to a stage where they're like, if I put like 6 wheels on it and build this thing, and they're like, it's a battle wagon. Mm-hmm. Like that's what a battle wagon looks like. It might vary slightly in the way it does, but its overall shape and design will be the same. And that's the sort of in-universe excuse as to why a culture that makes lots of weird ramshackle shit looks vaguely all the same.
So,
But I quite like it. It's fun.
It's basically
like why you can recognise patterns of all vehicles rather than just all being this weird gestalt of wheels, engines, tracks, guns, and whatever.
It also in game for those people that play the game and don't just listen to us for the sake of like something to do. If you play 40k, you can modify your Orc vehicles. Like they are the most customizable of races. You can still do now,
but not as much as you used to. You used to really be able to to define a battle wagon was quite hard. This is why they built an extra sprue.
Yeah.
They even designed an extra sprue that came with all the upgrades, like the death roller and the gun turret and
big wrecking ball.
Yeah, all sorts of things. There was all sorts of cool stuff you could bolt onto the side of your. And any good Orc player worth his soul
had all of them.
Well, not just that. It just has their own versions. That they have. You can usually tell, like a lot of race players that play different races in 40k, you can tell Orc players usually a mile off. They will hoard absolutely any kind of bit and piece and sprue and plastic card and whatever, and then just appear.
Are you using that? No, excellent.
And then just come back with some mind-blowing conversion that they've just cobbled together.
Well, it's because for the longest time you couldn't get things like stompers and gork
granted,
and stuff like that. So people just built their own.
Oh yeah, totally. But also, but the same with buggies and trucks and stuff because they were so old. Like people would just build them out of a lot of stuff. I remember actually a friend that I now know, which is really weird because it took me a long time to put two and two together. Joe Delapina, who was very famous in the X-Wing community, was previously famous for working for Warhammer World,
right,
and also famous for making amazing Orc conversions and paintings and stuff, and like all these monster trucks and weird vehicles. So
we have a friend called Chris Parker who does listen to the podcast. So hello, Chris, and he's very much an Orc player, and he's he has Imperial Knights that have got Orcs on them.
Yep.
How many times have we had to yell at him for screaming "Wah"?
And he will also yell "Wah" when he activates the Wah.
Of course, that is something.
And it will scare the pants right off you if the whole shop is.
For it.
You're just like, and all of a sudden, Chris is like,
quietly playing cards, and then suddenly.
I was outside getting something from the car one day, and I jumped just as I could hear from the shop through the windows that were all closed.
Yeah.
Just hear him yelling "Wag."
That's all players for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a traditional thing that happens. So
when they bleed green.
Yeah, they do.
Although on the topic of conversions, I think my favourite model conversion is the rhino.
Yes.
That someone cut in quarters.
In lots of different parts. Yeah. It's a bunch of Orcs that on their own are just carrying what appears to be out bits of metal, and then but when you actually put them all together and rank them up, it's like almost like a Roman testudo, isn't it? So they're literally carrying an entire rhino.
But the important part is on the front is painted
Spez Marines, so SPEZ, and then Marines spelled
so
wrong.
Way,
not Orcs.
On the front in big letters.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool conversions out there where they
I don't like that one.
Space Marines or whatever. Yeah,
it's really cool. There will be blood axes. Yes, they are commandos. Indeed. So odd boys, as we're saying, so we're going to start with weird boys.
Yeah.
Weird boys are essentially Orc psychers, if not really. They are
psychers.
They are psychers.
Because they do blow up and things like that. Yeah, they are a bit, they're effectively lightning rods.
Yeah.
For war energy.
Yes, and some of them can control it better than others.
Yes.
And they've discovered that if they put them in copper cages or have copper around them, it oddly dissipates some of the thing and stops them exploding.
Yeah. There used to be like a unit called Mad Boys, which were like sort of the guys who were put in charge of I think some of them were like proto Weird Boys, but they were kind of used as a way to shepherd Weird Boys into battle.
Right.
Like they sort of figured so they were all completely mental because of all the energy that had been flying around, but they were used to sort of like
guide them
goad a Weird Boy into roughly the right direction.
Yeah. So basically, Weird Boys, the more Orcs that gather around,
the more powerful
they can be.
But this is definitely a two-edged sword.
And at certain points, if they can't do it just right or their brain runs out their ears, they just explode.
Yes.
And this explosion can range from, oh shit, my head went pop, to, oh good, there's a 2-mile crater in the ground.
This is how ridiculous
it is. They can really overdo it. They've got one of the more dangerous not by design of odd boys, just because of the way they can make things explode.
Very much.
And themselves and everyone around them. So the Orc Psychers, known as Weird Boys, they don't really have a war boss. There's never been a war boss that's been a Weird Boy because they're so unstable.
Yeah, they're not. They don't have enough thoughts between those brains to actually. Yeah.
So next up of the odd boys is the mechs, the mechanics, or big mechs, and they have had war bosses.
Yes, they have.
And one of my favourite moments with big mechs as a war boss was when the mech lord teleported a mega gargant onto a planet to fight a warlord titan. That was really cool.
So this is the other thing.
The range of...
Quick aside,
yes,
Orcs have the most stable and powerful teleporting technology in the galaxy.
They do.
Bar none.
Yes.
Like, Imperial technology for teleporting is dangerous. You might end up in a wall if you don't do it properly.
You might have been in a warp if you don't do it properly.
Yeah, all of these things, right? And they could only do it under certain circumstances and very small things and all that kind of thing.
A squad of Terminators is about as good as it gets.
Yeah. And the reason is because Terminator is easy to do. Like, they don't tend to... all of that kind of thing. But Orcs can pretty much teleport anything up to and including enormous rocks.
Yeah.
So, that's a good... The
hang on a second, Pete. Just 1 second. A flashback has come to me. And this is going to cause you a lot of pain. But didn't the Adeptus Mechanicus teleport Ullanor as the whole planet to where it is now and rename it Armageddon? Isn't that something that canonically happened?
Apparently so. I want a drink and I haven't had a drink in 15 years. Anyway, moving on.
Other than the Adeptus Mechanicus suddenly gaining the technology only previously known to Orcs and never have used it since this moment, the Orcs do in fact have the most stable teleporters.
Yes.
Including
my favourite ever Orc invention, the shock attack gun.
Yes.
Which is just absolutely wonderful.
Well, now is the time, as we're talking about mechs, to explain what a shock attack gun is.
So, a shock attack gun is effectively a small... the modern version is a large Hoover connected to a small teleporter. So, the idea is that in the old days, you literally used to have... The shock attack gun had a big hopper on the top, and you had a runt herd who are responsible for cajoling the smaller species of greenskins, who would be nearby with bases of snotlings, and he would feed the snotlings into this hopper, which would then fall into a thing which would then teleport the snotlings through a very small warp tunnel at something. Now, this warp tunnel had no protection against the warp. So basically, these poor snotlings would be exposed to the warp for however long it would take them, because obviously physics and time doesn't work very well, between them leaving the gun and arriving at said destination. This would make the snotlings incredibly insane. And obviously absolutely they come out the other side just gibbering balls of death, teeth and claws. So you imagine like you're just standing there with your mates in the battle line when all of a sudden a small warp portal appears and a tide of tiny green, what seems like hell demons, just pours out of it at you and your friends, latches on and just starts ripping, eating and tearing anything and everything inside. This is my favourite of the mech weapons. It has had many iterations throughout the game.
It does.
Like I said, my personal favourite, like some of the things, is because back in the second edition of 40k, you had various tables for everything in that game.
It was a game of tables.
It was a game of tables and cards. And you used to, like, depending on what it was, you'd roll for the effect, right? And one of my favourite ones was Dreadnoughts, right? If you fired a shock attack gun at a Dreadnought, one of the results you could get was that some of the snotlings appear inside the Dreadnought sarcophagus and just start pulling and punching and all these things. So the Dreadnought would just go mental because obviously it was messing with the marine and also all the plugins and things. So it would start receiving various inputs. So the Dreadnought would just start spinning and shooting and whatever.
Like an Ed 209.
Yeah. It was brilliant. Then later on, they kind of simplified it a little bit and just had a table like because you used to have to roll 2d6 for the strength of the gun. And if you rolled a double, you had a table that said what the doubles were. So you could have this, because it's mostly used like an artillery piece, like a long-range sniper rifle almost. But one of my favourite results is, I think it was if you rolled like a 7 on the table, the orc, the mech that was holding the gun would just teleport to the unit it was firing at. So you'd be like, I'm going to destroy this unit of Terminators with this mega powerful gun, and then all of a sudden you just like, whoop! And like, oh crap, he's in combat.
I'm now in front of them.
Yeah, literally, he counts charging and everything. And he'd just be like, I didn't want to be here, I'm only on with this chopper, oh dear.
So,
that's one of my favourite orc inventions.
So they did update the shock attack gun.
They did.
And in 8th edition, I want to say.
Popped up originally, it disappeared from the game for a while.
Yeah, it did. It came back.
It disappeared after second edition, and then came back in, I want
7th?
to say, no, it came back before that. It came in the 5th edition release around the time of the Assault on Black Reach box set. Around that time, it was just before Orcs had been updated that January. And it came back then, it was a big thing. It was metal miniature, it was lovely. And then the update again is now in plastic.
Yeah.
So we have we literally got, part of it has a snotling dragging his claws through.
Yeah, he's being sucked in,
up the hose. Which awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool model now.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about Orc models is they are almost, a lot of them are like the bigger ones, are dioramas in of themselves.
Universally funny models, if you look at them close enough.
Yeah, and all the spinny whatnots.
My favourite thing about them was that I think it was 8th, maybe in 9th or early 9th, if you took 3 shock attack guns and a big mech, they could all fire like multiple times. And they would do some severe damage to their target.
If it worked.
If it worked.
That's the thing with Orcs.
You could always roll a double 1 for the strength.
Yeah, there's certain things with Orcs where you're always like, if this goes off, this is going to be... Like, if you look at the stats in a very positive way, you're like, oh my god, this gun is amazing. And then you go, no, but I have to... It does involve rolling dice.
Allow me to apply my rose-coloured glasses.
Yes, In Magical Christmas Land, as we say, like Magic the Gathering, this is going to be amazing. But in actual me playing the game mode, it's going to be a water pistol filled with piss.
Yep.
It's just like,
but yeah, so basically the mechs are your mechanics, your builders, and the more of them you get together, the bigger the stuff
you start with like guns and things like that.
Yeah, shooters.
Then you end up with bigger guns.
Big shooters,
yeah. And things like that. Then you end up with even bigger guns. So there's things like shock attack guns.
Bubble chuckers.
Tractor cannons.
Yes.
And this is where you start getting buggies and trucks and bikes and things. Then you start getting even bigger. And then you start getting...
So then you get killer cans first, then Death Dreads.
Because killer cans are dreadnoughts that are piloted by Gretchen.
Yeah.
Or Grots.
Oh, no, they've changed this.
Killer cans are not Grots anymore.
No, killer cans and Death Dreads are now... So what happens is I don't know if this is specific to all of them, maybe it was just a story, but basically the big mech would send his Grots and Gretchen out to find an orc that's passed out drunk. Drag him back and bolt him into the killer can, and they can't get out then. Yeah, basically.
No, I'm pretty sure that's Death Dreads.
Is that Death Dreads?
Yeah, killer cans are specifically. That's why they're smaller and have more competent guns.
I see.
Because the difference is Orcs are really good at fighting things, but they can't hit shit.
Yes.
Whereas Gretchen are weak and pathetic, but they understand how depth
aiming works. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why they have ballistic skill 3. Yeah. Killer cans have ballistic skill 3. Yeah. And Death Dreads and every other Orc have ballistic skill 2.
Yeah.
Why all the bigger guns are
or in modern day terms, for those of us who aren't ancient, the Orcs hit on a 5 up, and Gretchen hit on a 4 up. Yeah.
I forget. This is, for the kids out there.
For the young of us that don't operate on this silly ballistic skill nonsense anymore, unless of course you play 30k, and then what are you doing with your life? Anyway, so Mech Boys, pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And then, like I said, we haven't quite got to the end yet.
Oh, go on.
Because obviously after Killer Cans and Death Dreads, Morkanauts and Gorkanauts, which are like your Imperial Knight equivalents.
Yes.
Then you get Stompers.
Yes, which
are sort of Warhound Titan-ish.
Reaver to Warhound.
Warhound, mostly. Yeah. Then you've got Gargants.
Which is your Reaver.
Reaver to Warlord scale-ish. Yeah. And then if you get enough Orcs, obviously they eventually build... Because the Gargants specifically are also kind of a religious thing.
Yes.
Because they are basically the mechs building what they believe is like an avatar manifestation of their gods. Gork or possibly Mork.
Or both.
Yes. And then you end up with the Mega Gargants, which are the size of the Imperator Titans, which are literally almost like small cities that look vaguely orcish.
And it was one of those that we discussed, which was at Hell's Reach.
Yes.
And it was terrifying.
Indeed.
Even Grimaldus went, oh shit.
Yes, like I said, they are the ultimate pinnacle of Orc technology.
Yes, and engineering. It would be, at this point, remiss if we did not mention, because it is important for mechs and things, Gorkamorka.
Yes.
Because this is a big mech thing.
Yes.
In, I believe, 5th edition?
Oh, way before.
Was it before then?
Gorkamorka's 2nd edition.
Is it 2nd edition?
It's a spin-off. Technically, it's a spin-off of Necromunda.
Ah, I see.
So their idea with Necromunda, the skirmish game which we have now, was originally they were going to be doing loads of different ones. In different settings.
I see.
So, obviously, the first one was Necromunda, which is set at the bottom of an Imperial Hive City. Then Gorkamorka, which was set on the wastes of Gorkamorka, which is kind of a desert planet that may or may not be a Necron tomb world.
Yes.
Because it had loads of pyramids and weird stuff like that. Basically, a space hulk crashed on this planet and broke into lots and lots of parts. Yep. And the Orcs that were on it were kind of like, oh, crap.
We're stuck.
We're stuck here. But the mechs got together and were like, no, we've got a plan. We can rebuild this ship, and we'll build it in the image of the gods as well. We'll dedicate it to the gods, and we'll call it Gorkamorka. So the idea of the game was you played a warband of Orcs that were going out into the deserts of the planet to find scrap, and you were fighting over piles of scrap and then you would take them back to Mech Town, I believe it was called.
Yes, it was.
And you would use that as currency. You would trade that into the mechs to get all sorts of
upgrades.
Gubbins.
Yeah, for your stuff. I do think that we should do a full Gorka Morka.
Oh yeah. It's got a lot of really cool lore.
Yeah,
it was a short-lived game, but
it's cool.
Had a lot
game,
of really fun.
Really cool.
Really had a lot. This is where things like the Red Gobbo.
Yes,
which
comes into
it's now made a reappearance a few times.
Oh yeah, it comes back a lot. Yeah.
This is where he comes from.
Yeah.
And the Revolutionary Grot Council.
Yeah.
Things like this was really cool, and the muties are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Were like kind of a humanish gang. And then also there's the Diggers, which were humans. So these were humans who were kind of quite slightly, maybe sort of like Bronze Age, like really early sort of humans.
Yeah.
Who saw the Orcs and wanted to be them.
Yeah.
So they were like literally tiny, weedy humans pretending to be Orcs.
Yeah.
So like the leaders would paint themselves green. It was great, but they couldn't stand the sun, so all their trucks and stuff had to have canopies because they would get sunburned.
But but we'll cover. I think we'll cover Gorka Morka at some point. But it's worth mentioning Gorka Morka now because it's a very mech-driven.
It is,
thing.
yes.
So basically, the pinnacle of Orc engineering, of course, Mega Gargant
and
Space Hulks and stuff like that. The other odd boy is the Doc.
Oh, one of my favourite quotes is. There's I can't remember if it's from Gorka Morka or whatever, but it's like, there's a bunch of Orcs fighting, and one of the Orcs is like, "Oh, boss, I think my arm hurts." And he's like, "What do you mean you think your arm hurts?" And he goes, "Well, I can't find it." And he's like, "Oh, well, in that case, we better send you to the doc." And he's like, No, it's okay, boss. It doesn't feel so bad now. I'm pretty sure it's fine. Because going to the docks is. Again, it's something that you could do in Gorka Morka. Yeah, the docks are...
dangerous.
Yes.
Because they do, once they have you knocked out on that table,
you could...
They will do whatever the hell they want to.
You could go in for a, please can you give me a bionic arm, and you could end up, like, say, in a Dreadnought.
In a Death Dread, yeah.
In a Death Dread, or you could end up with, like, a uniwheel.
Yep.
Replacing both of your legs, or a bionic pancreas. Like,
My favourite story though is the Mad Doc that performed the Orc to Gretchen brain transplant.
Yeah, or Orc to Squig. It was
I think Orc to Squig. Sorry,
I thought
Orc to Squig. Orc to Squig.
Yeah, they literally tried to swap the brains of a Squig and an Orc.
So it's important to differentiate between a Doc, which is your essential maybe 1500s Doctor with dementia.
Classic bone
saw.
Yeah,
like,
literally will hack your arm off with a saw and then, like...
stick it back on.
Yeah, or just, like, nail a piece of metal over the hole. Yeah.
And a Mad Doc.
Yes.
Now, Mad Docs...
are Dr. Frankenstein on an LSD trip.
Yep. They are the ones who tend to get booted out of their tribes and they live on the edges.
Yeah, but then you get a few frames, like, obviously, Mad Doc Grotsnick, who is responsible for... fixing Gazgal.
Yes, we'll come back to that one because he's important.
Yes,
and we're gonna get to him. And the reason we did Docs and Mad Docs, we'll come back to Mad Doc Grotsnick in a little bit. But so essentially they are responsible for patching up the boys.
Yeah,
essentially.
Orc physiology is incredibly resilient.
Yes,
like this is the thing that makes them so dangerous. Is you can literally cut off large chunks of an orc,
including its head.
Yeah, and if you want to fix it, you can pretty much like staple it back together.
You can,
and by staple, I mean literally take a piece of metal rebar and kind of hammer it into the side of the orc to pull the two sides together.
There have been multiple stories of orcs having their heads cut off and then that head being put onto a new, not mangled body.
I mean, that's literally what happened to somebody we'll talk about later.
Yes, indeed. So that is essentially Docs and Mad Docs. So you want to try and avoid the Doc anyway. You really want to avoid the Mad Doc. Because God knows what's going to happen to you if you go and see him. Yeah. And they pull your teeth out because they weren't paying for what they're doing.
Yeah, they're happily. Dentistry stroke debit card.
Yeah, at the same time. So it's not just a case of like you go in because you've lost an arm, but you go back out with maybe like a different arm that wasn't yours and considerably less teeth.
Yeah.
And if they felt like they've done an especially good job,
healthcare system.
If they feel like they've done an especially good job, they might take a few extra teeth out as well as a tip.
As a tip. And then we got the runt herds.
Yes.
Now the runt herds are, like you said before, they look after the squigs, the grots, the Gretchen,
any kind of green skin life form that is not orcs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they take care of them, but they do have another purpose as well. And their other purpose is essentially the sort of lore. Well, sorry, but everything is food, including your Gretchen, your Grot, and your Squig. But they have another purpose, which is they are essentially almost like the lore keepers of the Orcs. They're the ones who tell the stories of the Brain Boys and all the big war bosses.
This is where, if you've ever seen the Hammer and Bolter episode, Old Baelai is literally a runt herd explaining about Yarrick and Gaskull.
Yeah, which is really cool. And they somehow know these stories from across the galaxy as well. Yeah. They're not restricted to the planet they're on.
Necessarily.
Yeah, they can make up a fable that just happens to coincide with...
Because again, just out all consciousnesses.
So I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is all of the Odd Boys.
Yes.
Have I missed any?
No, I'm pretty certain that's everything.
Good, because we're going to go back to Mad Doc Grotznik.
Yes.
And his most famous patient. So, Gaskull Mag Uruk Thraka, the prophet of the War, the great beast of Armageddon.
One of the original special characters 40k ever had.
Yes. He was just a goth dude, orc. Goth boy, there we go. Just one of the lads. When they were fighting against some beakies, Space Marines, and he got shot in the head.
He did, and this not being a particularly fatal experience.
Yeah, it narked him somewhat, mainly because he had to go to the dock.
Yes.
Not because he'd been shot in the head, but because he had to go to the dock.
Yeah.
And the only dock available was Mad Dog Grotznik.
Famous.
Very famous.
Infamous, probably.
Infamous doc. And of course he crawled his way in and mostly passed out.
Yeah.
And when he woke up, he had been altered by Grotznik.
A nice big metal brain pan.
Yep.
Now.
He had a titanium, I think it is. Adamantium, sorry.
Yeah.
patch over his the hole in his head. Part of his eye had been replaced.
As well,
some other bits and pieces. But he also had
now
started to hear voices and see things that weren't there.
Yeah, but these weren't just your usual sort of. This isn't your sort of schizophrenia mental.
No. This
is the gods.
Yes.
This is Gork and Mork speaking to Gaskull and giving him ideas and plans.
And he started to put these ideas and plans into action.
Yes.
And not only did they work. Yeah. They worked really well. Yeah. And as we've previously mentioned a few times, the more successful an orc is, the more orcs are attracted to them.
And the bigger the orc gets.
And the bigger in 40k the orc becomes. Yes. Now, in modern times, in the 42nd millennia, Gaskull is huge. Bigger than a dreadnought huge.
That's also because of what happens to him.
Yeah, so a couple of other things happen. So first of all, he takes his war and starts beating on other war bosses and warlords. Yeah. And he gets himself a deal with another orc war boss whose name I can't remember.
Nazdrag.
Is it Nazdrag?
That's after Armageddon 1. Or Armageddon 2, I should say.
Yeah, so...
Because I'm currently listening to The Purging of Catalyst.
Oh, right, okay.
The story of the Assault on Pristina 4, which is where him and Nazdrag, effectively, that's where they strike their deal. Yes. And where they test out teleportation.
Yeah. Oh, so first we have Armageddon 2, which if the Inquisition is listening, it's Armageddon 1. Armageddon, the first orc invasion of Armageddon. Yes. That's the best way of putting it.
Where he comes across his nemesis.
Commissioner or Commissar Yarrick. You have a big battle, and the orcs are winning.
Yeah.
Until our good friend and bro for life, Lord Commander Dante comes down and breaks the siege. We will do Armageddon's 1 and 2. We'll do Armageddon 1 at some point because we've done 2 at Hell's Reach, which was pretty much the most exciting part of it. But Armageddon 1 is mostly about.
Well, that's Armageddon 3 you're talking about.
Oh yeah, sorry, 3. God.
See, this is where you.
See, I am a loyal servant of the Inquisition. It's Armageddon 2
and Armageddon 3. The beginning of Armageddon 3 because the surrounding Hell's Reach is probably one of the most exciting individual conflicts, but the
rest of it's quite cool.
The situation around it's really cool. Like the space battles and the hunt for Orc Red October and
all that cool stuff. But yeah, Armageddon, the first orc war at Armageddon is Yarrick versus Gaskull.
Yes.
And Gaskull is winning until reinforcements arrive. Yes. Gaskull then buggers off.
Yes. Batters Golgotha.
Batters the Golgotha system.
Which is the original homeworld of what was Squats back in the day.
Yep. So that lays waste to that.
That's when he meets Nazdrag.
Yep. And that's when they do the deal which is for the mech or big mech, Orchimedes.
Yes.
Who is the inventor of the teleporter.
The really big
big-ass teleporters that can teleport asteroids and shit.
Yeah. They want to test it on a planet before they come back to Armageddon. He's already planning to go back to Armageddon and beat the crap out of them. He's like, right, I
need some more lads and some of the stuff.
And also I need to think about this and come up with some more cunning plans. So they go to a world called Persina 4, which happens to be a Dark Angel recruiting world, and mess around in it.
Yeah.
Outside of in-game canon, the whole Persina 4 campaign exists because one of the old sort of luminaries of Games Workshop, Andy Chambers, this was actually a campaign that he played with a bunch of friends.
Right.
This was his own homebrewed campaign. The Dark Angel, the part of the Dark Angels was played by a friend's homebrew chapter, and there were 2 Orc players, and it was all about they had a teleporter, and it was all about attacking on the teleporter and everything. Anyway, so they played that campaign themselves at home. It was really cool. They had a really good bit of fun, and they turned the story of what happened in that campaign into actual 40k lore.
Awesome.
Yeah, this became the Storm of Vengeance campaign.
Oh, right, yes.
Which also then spawned the Persina 4 story and also inspired the novel Angels of Darkness from Gav Thorpe, which is about Chaplain Boreas, and then obviously the Purging of Catalyst, and then the actual story, definitive story of that conflict.
Yeah.
The part of this is where it's become a big part of not only Gasgol's story, but also it's one of the big Dark Angels stories of 40k.
Yeah, they are.
So,
it's really cool. All spawned from a home campaign.
It's spawned from a home campaign that they just turned into actual campaign. They changed a few people, characters around, and turned it, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Little anecdote.
No, it's awesome. No, I love stuff like that. Because that used to be a big D&D thing. That happened with D&D a lot. Like, people would play at home, and all of a sudden it'd be part of the canon. They'd be like, "We did that.
That was really cool.
We did that."
I like it when games. Yeah. It's one of the parts of when games, especially games with earlier history, when it was a lot of it was. Yeah, just stuff that
happened.
Stuff that happened, or things, or even just in-jokes from like Angry Ron and things like that. These are all in-jokes for the people that were creating the lore at the time.
Yeah.
I always find that sort of stuff fascinating. But anyway, back to the story.
Back to the story of Gasgol. So Gasgol lost. Well, kind of lost Armageddon. Went off, made some new alliances, did some other stuff, and it's really important at this juncture to just how much the influence that the voices and visions that he has.
Well, normally, if you'd lose a war, like I was about, Armageddon, that'd be the last you'd ever hear of a war boss. Like, he would just be killed or die, and then his war would just trickle away, and he would. But the thing about Gasgol is he's smart enough to know when to pull out, and then come back stronger.
He didn't lose Armageddon. He
was
fell
like,
back.
This is no longer profitable. So it was like, okay, I'm going to go away and we'll try again another day. Same thing happened at 3 as well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and he sort of is smart. Not only smart enough, but in sort of has the pre-planning to be like, well, that's where it went wrong last time. Let's avoid doing that next time.
That's why, one of his first things he does when they invade Armageddon 3 again, when he invades Armageddon again, is because they drop rocks to use not only as bases but also like teleporter pads.
Yeah.
And one of the first rocks that gets dropped is specifically on the ruins of Hades Hive.
Yeah.
To be like, as a statement to say, you stopped me here last time, that ain't happening.
You're not going to do it again.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of Armageddon 3, the Second Orc War of Armageddon, once again, due to the intervention of a lot of Space Marines, and the Imperial Navy, and all sorts of things just falling down on this planet, which it's worth mentioning at this point that Armageddon produced an awful lot of munitions and tanks and fuel.
The original reason why Armageddon was so important was it was a major hive world, but it was also an industrial, whilst not being a forge world, it was like an industrial and sort of travel linchpin for the entire sector.
Yeah.
So if it fell, so many other worlds would lose access to various things as well, and and resources and whatever. And it was a travel route and everything. That's what made Armageddon. Why it wasn't just a case of let's just screw Armageddon over. It's why at the first War of Armageddon, why they weren't just like let's just exterminate
the planet.
They were like no, we'll take the entire population off and kill them and replace them. But the planet itself, because this is the hardest thing about 40k. As a little quick side, the hardest thing about 40k is with the fact of how large the galaxy is and how large everything is in 40k. Killing a planet isn't really in the scale of things a particularly big deal. So actually, the hardest part of, I think, the 40k lore is finding a reason for the Imperium to care enough to defend it.
Yep. And Armageddon has been defended a lot.
Yes. So trying to find a lore reason why they wouldn't just be like, screw it,
just exterminate. Just let all the Orcs land, and then we'll drop bombs on it and leave it alone. Yeah. But Armageddon produced Prometheum tanks, guns, all sorts of things for the surrounding sector in vast quantities. Yeah. But it is starting to get to the point where the Administratum is checking checks and balances at what exactly Armageddon is costing to defend it versus what it is capable of producing. And it is starting to sway into the other side because of Garskell Thraka.
The
repeated attacks of Garskell Thraka. After Armageddon 3 or Orc Boogaloo thing, Garskell once again sort of leaves before the end of the battle.
Yeah.
He can see where the tide is going, and there is a story told of him getting off into space, and all of a sudden his entire ship is just teleported away from where it is to another orc infested area.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is my next war. This is where I'm going to find more lads to go and do something else. And we don't quite know what that is yet. Yeah. That's not been mentioned in the sort of where he's up to, because we know that Armageddon.
I know he has had one more big story interaction.
Have I missed something?
Yes.
Oh, go on.
It's his interaction with Ragnar Blackmane.
Oh, I missed this one.
So this is the could be M41, 42 stuff. This is the bit I don't know so well. This is where he ends up in a fight with Ragnar Blackmane and gets decapitated.
Oh, of course, yes. No, I mean, that was. I actually think that is before. Just so he gets.
It's how Ragnar becomes Primarisized, and it's why we end up with this massive new.
Yeah, so we end up with a fight between the Space Wolves and Garskell's lot.
Yeah.
Garskell gets decapitated. The Mad Doc gives him a new body.
Yeah.
With a lot of mechanics and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And then after that, he's teleported away.
Yeah.
And that's where we're up to.
But the thing was, he had a run-in with Ragnar. And they both battered the living crap out of him.
Yeah.
This is why Ragnar had to become
a Primaris.
And also why he literally got built from the neck up, down.
Neck down.
So this is why he's now freaking enormous.
Yeah.
Because Grotznik was like, I've got a plan.
Yeah. Let's make you even bigger.
Yes.
So that is honestly most of Orcs, I think.
The other fascinating thing, one thing we have missed,
go on.
is the reason why a very famous Inquisitor was declared excommunicatus.
Oh, go on.
So, Inquisitor Cryptman.
Oh, of course.
Inquisitor Cryptman is famous for two things. Two things bear his name. Cryptman Protocol and Cryptman Solution.
Yes.
The Cryptman Protocol is a dark and necessary thing, which is basically a way of helping starve Tyranids. So if Tyranids have invaded the planet and you know that they're not really we can't really stop them, you let them commit, you try and force them to commit as much biomass to a planet as is humanly possible, and then you exterminatus the planet because it destroys all organic life. And therefore, the Hive Fleet has expended an awful lot of mass and lost it all.
Yes.
It's horrible. It's condemned to several worlds. Even Dante has enacted a Cryptman Protocol. He does so in Devastation of Baal.
He does, and he doesn't like it.
No, but he does it.
But he does do it.
But yeah, so that's the thing that he was originally famous for. He understood the way that Tyranids worked.
Yes.
Then he thought of a really cool plan, which is known as the Cryptman strategy, which is what got him excommunicated. Which is he managed to divert a Hive Fleet into the Orc-held region of Octarius, figuring that they would kill each other.
Good plan.
And the reason, it sounds like a plan on paper.
However,
as many people point out to him, this meant that one side would eventually win. They wouldn't kill each other, and whichever one of those two factions came out of said conflict would be ridiculously powerful, having fought off the other one and destroyed it. And this was the thing that got him excommunicated, because he was like, I see what you're going for, but also, the fuck, dude? We're now going to have to deal with super nids
Or actually,
ridiculous orcs.
Is it Octavius where Biovores came from? They're Orky, right?
Yeah, because there was a point they've redone them now, but there was a cool thing. A little aside for Tyranids was there was a cool thing they did around 3rd edition where they insinuated that certain Tyranid subspecies were created using the species that have been found in the galaxy. So zoanthropes, for example, were specifically Eldar because of their psychic gifts. Zoanthropes have Eldar heritage. Tyrant Guard are from Space Marine genetic stock. Yep. That's why they're big, really like the fused bone structure and used as guard things. And the Biovores, because the Orcs are fungi and stuff, they had the bigger thing. They would launch spore mines because spores. Fungus. Yep. Yeah, that was originally the plan. Was that they would Biovores were taken from Orc genetic stock.
Yeah.
Now they just look like beetles.
Yeah. Now they're just Tyranids. Yes. Which I think is a little less cool.
It is, yeah. I like the little genetic heritage.
I like the genetic heritage thing. That's really cool.
There we go. Yeah, that's a little cool.
I do think that of all the Orc war bosses, Garskull is my favourite.
Well, obviously, yeah. Do you know what? I know that I would love to see Nazdrake done again.
I would too, yeah.
As a character. Because we've got like some of the older characters have popped up, like a Zogrod Wartsnagger, who's
he has.
Herd.
Yeah.
He has appeared. Obviously, the other thing I really like is the we talked about Captain Badrook.
We've got Badrook. Quickly mention Captain Badrook. Yes. So, the great freebooters tend to be Orcs that have either left or been kicked out of their tribe.
Yes.
And
they take a bunch of friends with them and they serve the Stars becoming pilots. They even work as mercenaries for humans.
Yes, they do.
They tend to be the Deathskulls especially tend to be, or Blood Axes tend to be the go-betweens.
Yeah.
Between humans and also Orcs. There is a bit of trading and stuff that goes on with that.
Yeah, anyway, the freebooters are
the most famous
classical pirates, and the most famous of all is Captain Badrook.
Yes.
Captain Badrook has a massive spaceship called the Black Tooth, I think. Something like that. And he is a very famous and very scary large orc.
He has a proper tricorn hat, or bicorn hat.
Bicorn hat.
Eye patch.
Cigar, which is actually a Grot's tooth, Grot's finger, not a cigar.
He also has a massive coat.
Yes.
Which is lined, like I said before, lined with lead. Because the gun he took off of an Ogryn. The Ripper guns that Ogrins have, that are effectively sort of grenade launchers. He took that and thought, wait a minute, this is not as cool as it could be.
Let's make it better.
Yeah, and figured out a way to use plasma canisters as ammunition.
Yes.
But obviously they leak a lot of radiation, hence the lead coat.
Yes, so he has that. He also is very, very famous for leading the world's worth of flash gits.
Yes.
Now, flash gits, of course, being mostly from the freebooters. Yeah. You do get them in as mercenaries in other
you see them in Bad News because obviously they're quite expensive. They have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because they literally, their whole thing is, I have this really cool gun and I'm going to keep adding to it and tweaking it and making it better and much better.
And they basically, where they turn up and Badrook turns up, they tend to make a mess, nick everything that isn't nailed down,
pry up everything that is,
and take the planet and bugger off. And they are your classical pirate. And in the Brutal Cunning novel, you get Badrooks in that, and in that he has a Brummy accent.
Oh wow!
Yes, the Orcs tend to be a little bit Brummy
or Cockney. They're usually portrayed as Cockneys. But angry kind of.
But no, in this Captain Badrook sounds like he's from Birmingham. Oh no! You're all right, lads.
He's a freebooter.
He's a freebooter. So he's in that, and of course they are fighting against the Admech, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and there's a lot of fun it's had. So, and it's not a long novel, so if you do get a chance,
it's
Brutal
Cunning.
Very good.
The other character that I actually personally love because I love Blood Axes is Snickrot, the Ultimate Commando. He is effectively Sam Fisher from the Splinter Cell games.
Oh, okay.
It reimagined as an enormous orc.
Cool.
Yeah, I've always loved his model because he's got like the proper, like he's got that Sam Fisher sort of goggles with all the lenses.
Oh, right, okay.
You can either have up or down, and it's got various different models. The original one I really like because his whole thing is he's like a really stealthy orc. He's got these two massive knives that look like proper military K-bars. And the original model is him with the mask down, and he's got the knives in his hands, but he's got one, but the finger's like up by his mouth, sort of going shh. He's really cool. Plus his wrists, the armour that he has on his wrist is just dog tags. These tags There's literally just hundreds of dog tags. It's the chains of dog tags wrapped around the wrist. that he just uses as kind of braces.
That's awesome.
He's one of my favourite.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's
brief overview of it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I want to know more about any of the other orcs.
Because
Zach Struck and all sorts of others. Endless amounts.
Niblet even.
Oh, Niblet, yes.
Niblet, sorry, Makari.
Yeah.
Niblet is Grom.
Niblet's Grom.
Yeah, I'm getting confused between my little
so many Gretchen add-ons. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe.
We figure we will finish this trilogy of episodes, it will be now,
yes,
with our discussion of Gorka Morka, the game, the setting,
yes,
and all the wonderful, cool things that came out of it.
Yeah, I think Gorka Morka will round it out nicely, and then we'll move on to something else.
Something else.
Yeah, probably.
Plus, it gives us a week to think of what that something else is.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I actually had an idea now that we've come to that, but I'll spare that for after. Save that for later.
For another day.
So next week, Gorka Morka, ladies and gentlemen, one of both mine and Pete's favourite settings, I think.
It is fun, and the game itself was really fun.
It was good. Yeah, it was really good. So until next week, it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from him.
Yeah, and it's good night from her.
Good night.
There we go.
Bye.
Bye.